The signal that changed everything. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her fingers against her tired eyes as the alien symbols danced across her screen in the dim communications bay of Frontier Station Alpha. 3 months into her assignment as the station's senior linguist, she had grown accustomed to the strange beauty of Dominion script, but tonight something felt different. The messages flowing through the quantum relay network carried an urgency that made her stomach twist with unease. The station floated in the neutral zone between human space and the territory controlled by the Galactic Dominion, a coalition of 7 alien species that had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 2 millennia. Humanity had been granted probationary membership in their council just 18 months ago, after first contact had revealed Earth's existence to the wider galactic community. It was supposed to be humanity's golden ticket to the stars, their chance to join an advanced civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. Elena took another sip of her cold coffee and focused on the intercepted transmission. As the station's expert in Dominion languages, she had been tasked with monitoring their communications for any threats to human interests. What she found made her blood run cold. The message was encrypted using a cipher she had never seen before, but Elena had always possessed an unusual gift for pattern recognition. Working through the night, she slowly began to decode the alien text. The first few lines seemed routine, discussing trade routes and resource allocation. Then she reached the section that changed everything. Protocol cleansing has been approved by the High Circle, the message read. Human expansion must be terminated before their aggressive nature threatens Dominion stability. Authorization granted for elimination of outlying colonies. Message must be sent to demonstrate consequences of defiance. Elena's hands shook as she continued reading. The Dominion had been watching humanity's rapid expansion with growing alarm. In just 18 months, human colonies had been established on 12 new worlds. Human technology was advancing at a rate that disturbed the alien leadership. Most troubling of all, humans had begun asking uncomfortable questions about Dominion, policies, and territorial restrictions. The solution, according to the decoded message, was simple. Humanity needed to be taught its place in the galactic order through decisive action. The outer colonies would be destroyed as a demonstration of Dominion power. Any human resistance would be met with complete annihilation. Elena saved the partially decoded message and immediately began working on the rest of the transmission. More details emerged as she broke through each layer of encryption. The attack was scheduled to begin in 72 hours, targeting the agricultural colonies in the Kepler system first. Over 3 million civilians lived in those settlements, families who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. But the most horrifying revelation came in the final section of the message. To ensure that humanity understood the seriousness of their situation, the Dominion planned to execute a human prisoner currently held on their capital world. The execution would be broadcast across all human settlements as a warning of what awaited those who refused to submit to alien authority. The prisoner was Rebecca Chen, a 16-year-old girl who had been working as a cultural translator in the Dominion Embassy on New Geneva. She had been arrested 3 weeks ago on charges of espionage, though Elena knew the real reason for her detention. Rebecca had been present during high-level negotiations and had overheard discussions about restricting human expansion. Her only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Elena felt sick as she read the execution order. Rebecca was just a child, barely out of high school, who had volunteered for the translator program because she loved learning about alien cultures. Now she was going to die because the Dominion wanted to send a message about human inferiority. Working. Frantically, Elena composed an urgent report to Earth Defense Command. She attached the decoded messages and marked the transmission with the highest priority classification. The message would take 6 hours to reach Earth through the quantum relay network, but every minute counted. The colonies needed to be warned, and Rebecca needed to be saved. As Elena prepared to send the message, the lights in the communications bay suddenly went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Elena heard the hiss of the bay doors opening behind her, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. She turned to see 3 figures entering the communications bay. The leader was tall and thin, with the distinctive metallic skin of the Threnari, one of the Dominion's founding species. Behind him came 2 guards in full battle armor, their weapons drawn and aimed directly at Elena. "Dr. Vasquez," the Threnari said in perfect English, his voice carrying the harmonic overtones typical of his species. "You will step away from the console immediately. You are under arrest for violations of the Communications Security Act." Elena's hand moved toward the transmission controls, but one of the guards fired a warning shot that scorched the wall next to her head. The smell of burning metal filled the air as she raised her hands in surrender. "How did you know?" Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The Threnari leader smiled, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Did you really think we would allow humans access to our communications without monitoring your activities? Every message you have decoded, every transmission you have sent, every thought you have typed into your primitive computers has been observed by Dominion intelligence." Elena felt her heart sink. If they had been watching her for months, then they knew about her other activities as well. She had been secretly documenting Dominion military movements and resource allocations, building a comprehensive picture of their capabilities and weaknesses. That information was stored in encrypted files throughout the station's computer network. "Agent Corvex," the Threnari continued, "you have proven to be quite resourceful. Your linguistic skills are impressive for a human. It is unfortunate that your species lacks the wisdom to use such talents constructively." Elena was dragged from the communications bay and taken to the station's detention center. As they walked through the corridors, she could see other human personnel being arrested by Dominion security teams. The entire human staff of Frontier Station Alpha was being rounded up, their diplomatic immunity apparently meaningless in the face of Dominion authority. In her cell, Elena was forced to watch as the Dominion broadcast Rebecca Chen's execution across all human communication networks. The young girl faced her death with remarkable courage, looking directly into the camera as she spoke her final words. "They think we're weak," Rebecca said, her voice steady despite the energy restraints holding her in place. "They think that killing one human girl will make the rest of humanity bow down in fear. But they don't understand us at all. Humans don't surrender, we don't forget, and we never forgive those who hurt our children." The energy beam that ended Rebecca's life was broadcast to every human colony, every space station, every ship in the fleet. The message was clear: submit to Dominion authority or watch your people die. But as Elena sat in her cell, she thought about something the aliens had overlooked. Humanity had been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in facilities hidden from alien observation, human scientists had been developing technologies that the Dominion couldn't even imagine. Elena had been part of the team that helped design those systems during her previous assignment at the Mars Research Complex. The Dominion thought they understood humanity. They saw a young species, barely capable of interstellar travel, dependent on alien technology and guidance. They believed that a show of force would bring humans to heel like any other conquered species. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As news of Rebecca's execution spread throughout human space, something awakened in the collective consciousness of humanity. It wasn't just anger, though, that burned hot enough to melt steel. It wasn't just grief, though. Millions of parents looked at Rebecca and saw their own children. It was something deeper and more dangerous than either emotion alone. It was the realization that humanity was truly alone in a hostile galaxy, surrounded by species that viewed them as little more than animals to be controlled or eliminated. The dream of joining a benevolent galactic civilization died with Rebecca Chen, replaced by something harder and infinitely more deadly. In the depths of space, human warships that had been disguised as cargo vessels began powering up weapon systems that shouldn't have existed. On hidden bases throughout the outer colonies, scientists activated research projects that had been classified beyond even military clearance. In the halls of Earth's government, leaders who had preached peace and cooperation began implementing plans that would have horrified them just days before. The Dominion had wanted to send a message about human weakness and inferiority. Instead, they had awakened something that would consume their entire civilization. As Elena fell asleep in her cell, she whispered a prayer for Rebecca Chen and a promise for those who had killed her. Humanity was coming, and it would not be denied. When humanity showed its true face, the emergency session of the Earth Defense Council convened 6 hours after Rebecca Chen's execution was broadcast across human space. Admiral Sarah Cross stood before the assembled representatives of humanity's military and political leadership, her weathered face reflecting the fury that burned in the hearts of 8 billion humans. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Cross began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. "The Galactic Dominion has declared war on humanity. They may not have used those exact words, but their actions speak clearly enough. They have murdered one of our children and threatened to destroy our colonies unless we submit to their authority." The room was silent as Cross activated the holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. Images of Rebecca Chen appeared in the air, showing the young translator during happier times at the embassy on New Geneva. Then came the footage of her execution, which several representatives couldn't bear to watch. "The question before us," Cross continued, "is not whether we will respond to this aggression. The question is how complete our response will be. For 18 months we have played the role of grateful newcomers to galactic civilization. We have followed their rules, respected their boundaries, and pretended to be impressed by their ancient technologies. That pretense ends today." President Maria Santos, the leader of the United Earth government, stood up from her seat at the head of the council table. "Admiral Cross, what are our realistic options? The Dominion controls 7 species across hundreds of worlds. Their fleets outnumber ours by a factor of 20 to 1. How can we possibly fight them and win?" Cross smiled grimly as she input new commands into the holographic display. The images of Rebecca faded, replaced by technical schematics that few people in the room had ever seen before. "Madam President, what you're looking at is the reason humanity has survived every threat we've encountered throughout our history. We adapt, we overcome, and when necessary, we become something our enemies never expected." The schematics showed weapon systems that seemed to belong in science fiction rather than reality. Quantum displacement cannons that could erase matter at the subatomic level. Temporal disruption fields that could age enemy ships centuries in seconds. Most impressive of all, something called the Void Engine, which could manipulate the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Project Nightfall has been in development since the day we made first contact with the Dominion, Cross explained. While our diplomats were learning to speak their languages and our traders were establishing commercial relationships, our scientists were preparing for the possibility that galactic civilization might not welcome humanity as equals. Dr. James Morrison, the head of the Mars Research Complex, rose from his seat to address the assembly. "The technologies you're seeing represent advances that are centuries ahead of anything the Dominion possesses. We didn't achieve these breakthroughs through normal research and development. We had help." Morrison activated another section of the display, showing images from the far edge of human space. An ancient derelict spacecraft hung in the void, its hull scarred by millions of years of cosmic radiation. 3 years ago, our exploration fleets discovered this vessel in the Omega Centauri cluster. It belonged to a species called the Architects who vanished from the galaxy long before the Dominion rose to power. The assembled representatives stared at the alien ship in amazement. It was massive, easily 10 times larger than humanity's biggest warships, and its design followed principles that human engineers were only beginning to understand. "The Architects left behind more than just their ships," Morrison continued. "They left behind a warning. Buried in the ship's databanks, we found records of the Dominion's true history. They weren't always the peaceful coalition they claim to be today. 2 million years ago, they systematically exterminated every species that refused to submit to their authority." Morrison brought up images from the ancient records, showing worlds reduced to lifeless husks and entire civilizations erased from existence. The Architects tried to resist, but they were defeated and driven to extinction. Before they died, they hid these ships throughout the galaxy, along with the technology needed to fight back against Dominion tyranny. "Why didn't they tell us about this during first contact?" President Santos asked. Cross answered before Morrison could respond. "Because they were testing us. The Architect technology only activates in response to specific conditions. The species must be facing extinction. They must have exhausted all peaceful alternatives, and they must demonstrate the will to use whatever means necessary to survive. As if summoned by her words, the lights in the chamber dimmed, and a new voice filled the air. It spoke in perfect English, though it carried harmonic undertones that no human throat could produce. "People of Earth," the voice said, "I am the final echo of the architect civilization, preserved in quantum matrices to witness this moment. Your species has passed the trials we established. You have shown creativity, courage, and the determination to protect your young. The tools of war are now yours to command." The holographic display changed again, showing the locations of hidden architect facilities throughout human space. Each facility contained weapons and technologies that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. More importantly, they contained something the Dominion had never encountered: the ability to fight on humanity's terms, rather than theirs. Admiral Cross looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. "The Dominion expects us to respond conventionally. They think we'll send our fleets to defend our colonies, where their superior numbers will crush us in open battle. They're planning to use our predictable tactics against us, just like they've done to every other species they've conquered." Cross activated the final section of her presentation, showing a map of Dominion space with key worlds marked in red. "Instead, we're going to do something they've never experienced. We're going to show them what happens when humans stop pretending to be civilized." The plan Cross outlined was breathtaking in its scope and terrifying in its implications. Humanity wouldn't just defend their colonies or strike back at military targets. They would systematically dismantle the entire Dominion civilization, using architect technology to erase their enemies from existence. Phase 1 would target the Dominion's military infrastructure, using quantum weapons to destroy their fleets, before they could launch their planned attack on human colonies. Phase 2 would eliminate their industrial capacity, leaving their worlds defenseless and their populations helpless. Phase 3 would be the final solution: the complete erasure of every Dominion world, their histories deleted from the cosmic record as if they had never existed. "This is genocide," whispered Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the Earth's chief diplomat. "We're talking about killing billions of innocent civilians." Cross turned to face the diplomat directly. "Dr. Warren, I want you to remember Rebecca Chen's face when you talk about innocent civilians. I want you to think about the 3 million colonists they plan to murder in the Kepler system. The Dominion made their choice when they decided that humanity needed to be taught a lesson in submission." President Santos stood up slowly, the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. "If we do this, there's no going back. We'll become something the galaxy has never seen before. Are we prepared to live with the consequences?" Admiral Cross nodded grimly. "Madam President, we became that something the moment they killed our child. The only question now is whether we have the courage to embrace what we've always been underneath: the veneer of civilization." The vote was unanimous. Project Nightfall was authorized, and the transformation of humanity from hopeful newcomers to galactic apex predators began immediately. The first Dominion fleets to die never saw their attackers. Human ships materialized out of quantum fold space, unleashed weapons that rewrote the laws of physics, and vanished before their enemies could respond. Entire armadas were reduced to their component atoms in seconds, their crews experiencing a moment of perfect understanding before they ceased to exist. The Dominion's homeworlds followed quickly after their fleets. The quantum weapons didn't just destroy cities and populations, they erased the very concept of those worlds from reality. Space-time itself was rewritten to exclude their existence, as if the Dominion species had never evolved in the first place. Within 72 hours of Rebecca Chen's execution, the Galactic Dominion simply ceased to exist. Their worlds were gone, their fleets were erased, and their civilizations were deleted from the cosmic record. Only the humans remembered that they had ever existed at all. In the aftermath of their victory, humanity found itself alone in a galaxy that suddenly seemed much smaller and far less threatening. The other species that had once cowered before, Dominion might now look to Earth with a mixture of awe and terror. They had witnessed the birth of something unprecedented, a species that could not only defend itself, but could erase its enemies from existence itself. Admiral Cross stood in the command center of the Mars facility, watching as the last traces of Dominion civilization faded from their sensors. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been rescued from Frontier Station Alpha and now served as humanity's chief xenological analyst, helping to catalog the remains of the species they had destroyed. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Elena asked as she watched the final data packets fade from the quantum network. Cross considered the question carefully before answering. "Elena, they killed a 16-year-old girl to prove a point about human inferiority. They planned to murder 3 million colonists to teach us about submission. Given the choice between their survival and ours, I'll choose humanity every time." Elena nodded slowly, understanding the logic even as she struggled with the implications. What happens now? The galaxy knows what we're capable of. How do we interact with the other species when they're terrified of us? Cross smiled grimly as she looked out at the stars that now belonged to humanity. "We do what we've always done, Elena. We survive, we grow, and we make sure that no one ever again mistakes our restraint for weakness." In the months that followed, humanity emerged as the dominant force in their section of the galaxy. Other species approached Earth with offerings of tribute and alliance, desperate to avoid the fate of the Dominion. The dream of joining a benevolent galactic civilization was dead, replaced by the reality of human supremacy built on the ashes of those who had dared to threaten Earth's children. Rebecca Chen had not died in vain. Her sacrifice had awakened something in humanity that would echo through the ages, a reminder that some species were never meant to be conquered or controlled. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the true nature of humanity, and that lesson would never be forgotten. The age of human dominance had begun, and it would endure for as long as the stars themselves burned in the cosmic void.